Hello and welcome to this section of the MATLAB tutor. Here in this section we're going to begin to use matrices, which are absolutely essential to MATLAB. In fact, MATLAB stands for Matrix Laboratory. So as you've probably noticed so far, MATLAB is really centered around entering things. We were doing it last section in terms of vectors, and I hinted more than once that really a vector is just a matrix with one row. And so here we're going to expand that and do some of the same operations but with full-blown matrices. So in MATLAB, matrices really take center stage because ultimately you can store all of your data in a matrix and then use the built-in operations that MATLAB provides to operate on that data. And so you can operate and work with really large data sets at any one time and do it all at once. So before we actually jump into matrices, I'm going to do a quick 5-minute recap because it's a direct extension of kind of what we've done before. If I create a vector called, let me just call it test vector, right? We did this in the last several sections. How would I do that? I just type the name in and set it equal to, and I open a bracket, and I said, okay, I can set this vector equal to 1, -2, space 4, space 5, space -1, or something like this. This vector has 5 elements. You put spaces between the elements and you enclose them in these brackets. And if I hit enter, then the variable test vector is created and it echoes it back to me, and here it is. So I can use test vector in calculations or whatever I'm doing. We've done all that stuff before with vectors. And if I want to extract a single element from this vector, then I just type the name in, open a parenthesis, and just ask it for what element I want. So let's say element number 2 and close the parentheses off. When I hit enter, it takes the second element out of the vector and puts it back onto the screen for me. Let me bring that last guy up. If I want to instead extract a range of elements, let's say I want to extract this element, and this element, so then I would put 2:4. And what this colon means is it's going to extract elements of test vector elements 2 through 4. So element 2, element 3, and element 4. So this is element 2, this is element 3, this is element 4. So when I hit enter, basically I get a subvector back. I get a new vector that's kind of formed from the original vector, and it comes back in terms of a vector. You can see it's spaced out and listed just as a vector there. So I can extract elements from vectors, and I can extract ranges of elements, subsets of the vector, so to speak. All right, so we've done all that before. The reason I am wanting to share that with you is because creating a matrix is sort of a direct extension of that. So let me clear the screen. Let me put... Now I'm just going to clear the screen. So instead of typing a vector in the way we just did, if you want to do a matrix, I'm going to name this guy test matrix, and I'm going to set it equal to, you open a bracket just as you always do, and if you do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, if you just closed it off like that, then that would be a vector, just as we just created a minute ago. But instead of closing it off, I'm going to put a semicolon. And then I'm going to type 4 more guys in. 4, 3, -2, 9. Okay? Now if I close it off here, what I've done is the first 4 elements, these guys right here, this is the first row of the matrix. The spacing is spacing them out, along the way as we've been doing for the vectors. But the semicolon tells MATLAB, okay, go to the next row. These next 4 guys are in the next row. So if I actually hit enter here, then this is test matrix right here. So the first row is what I've put all the way up till the semicolon. The next row starts afterwards, right? So this is how you enter matrices in MATLAB. You literally type the elements in for the first row, and then you type the elements in for the second row, and you just put a semicolon between them. Now let me bring up that last thing I entered. This is what I typed in. Now I'm going to add even more to it. I'll just take that bracket off. I'll put another semicolon, and I'll just put 5, 5, 4, 4. That's my third row. I'll put a semicolon there, and I'll put a fourth row. -1, space -2, space -3, space -8. And I'll close it off with a bracket. So here I am changing the value of test matrix. This is the first row. This is the second row to that semicolon. This is the third row to that semicolon. And this is the fourth row to that semicolon. And when I hit enter, you can see now I have a 4 by 4 matrix. So this is the first row, second row, third row, fourth row, and you can see that the semicolons basically tell MATLAB when to go to the next row. So this is the easiest way to enter a matrix into MATLAB anytime you need to deal with a matrix. Now, a lot of times, if you have a data file, like some raw data that you've collected in some experiment or some survey or something, you might have it in a data file, and then you can import that data into a matrix to operate on it. Now, we'll get into importing data much later on, but when you're entering the thing by hand, this would be the easiest way to do it. You just type everything in. All right? So notice how we have obviously 4 rows in this case and 4 columns. So much like in the matrix guy, in the vector guy where we could extract elements, let me clear the screen here. Let's do test vector. Let's put that up and test matrix. All right. So remember how we extracted elements before from test vector. We just put a parentheses and we put, element 3. Give me element 3. Well, that isn't going to really be too informative for a matrix because where's element 3 at, right? So if you want to extract an element of a matrix, here's how you do it. Matrix, test matrix, parentheses. You have to tell it what element you want. So let's say I want this one here, right? This number 3 here. This is in row number 2, column number 2, right? So I put 2, 2, like this. It always goes in MATLAB row, comma, column. So it's row, column. So row 2, column 2, hit enter, and this number 3 is what was passed back. If I recall this guy, and I put row number 3 like this, column number 4, then it goes row 3, column 4. I should get this 4 back. Let's see what I get. And I do get the 4 back. If I could do row 4, column 1, then this is going to be row 4, column 1 should be a -1. And that's what I get back, -1. So a lot of times when you're dealing with matrices like this, you might import some data, put it in a few matrices, do all kinds of analysis and manipulations of that data, and then you might want to extract specific pieces of data to display, to yourself. And so then this is how you would reach into that matrix. You can kind of think of this as a window. You reach into that matrix and you grab whatever element that you want. Now let me clear the screen. Test vector. Let me just show you. That's test vector. I don't want to put that. Let me clear the screen. Test matrix. This is the matrix. If you forget about that and you just put element 1 like this with no comma, no row, comma, column, MATLAB is going to return a number 1, which is the first element of this matrix. If you put a 2 in there, MATLAB is going to go down and give you this guy. If you put a 3 there, MATLAB is going to go down this column and give you that. If you put a 4 there, then you're going to get this guy. And if you put a 5 there, it's going to go off to the next column and give you this, number 2. So it's not that useful to do that. Why would you? But if you know, for instance, that you want to count down, the 5th element in is 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the 5th element. You just have to remember to count down and then up. That's how MATLAB does it. Typically, you're not going to be interested in doing that. Typically, you're going to be interested in grabbing a specific element. So that's how you would do it.